This slide presents the overview of the chapter. Learning objectives. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to understand the importance of nutrition, know the classification and modes of nutrition, explain autotrophic nutrition, describe the process of photosynthesis in plants, mention the materials that are essential for the process of photosynthesis, demonstrate the necessity of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis by conducting an experiment, explain the role of light in photosynthesis, illustrate the production of oxygen during photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight, demonstrate the uses of sunlight in the formation of starch, interpret chlorophyll and photosynthesis, illustrate the mechanism of photosynthesis, interpret heterotrophic nutrition, explain how organisms obtain the nutrition, explain parasitic nutrition in Cuscuta, describe the nutrition in human beings, illustrate the steps in passage of food through alimentary canal, sketch the flowchart of human digestive system, explain food deficiency diseases, diseases due to malnutrition, explain vitamin deficiency diseases. Before entering into the chapter, follow the instructions shown on the screen. Click each tab to know more. In lower classes, we learned that energy is needed to do all the activities such as breathing, working, walking, etc. Even if we are not doing any activity, the energy is still needed to maintain the working of our body. This energy comes from the food which we eat. Can you answer these questions? Do you know how animals and plants obtain their nutrition? What are autotrophs? What are heterotrophs? What are saprophytes? How can our body perform different functions? Let us try to answer these questions and learn more about nutrition. First, let us learn about nutrition and its importance. The process of intake of food, its digestion and distribution to different parts of the body is termed as nutrition. In simple words, nutrition is the process of acquiring energy and materials for growth. Some substances like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals, etc. present in the food that support the growth of organisms and provide raw materials for the biosynthesis of the body constituents are called nutrients. Generally, nutrients are classified into three groups, namely energy-yielding carbohydrates and fats, body-building proteins, growth-regulating or protective. Organisms need food for various purposes such as to grow and get energy to perform various life activities, repair the damaged cells and tissues, produce enzymes and hormones which are essential to carry out and maintain proper life activities, and develop resistance against diseases. Now, let us learn about the classification of different types of nutrition found in organisms. The classification of nutrition is shown on the screen. Hover the mouse over the tabs to know more about their process. Now, let us learn about modes of nutrition. Generally, organisms differ each other in their modes of deriving nutrients from the environment. Based on the mode of obtaining food, organisms are classified into two types. They are autotrophs, heterotrophs. Hence, there are mainly two modes of nutrition. They are autotrophic nutrition, heterotrophic nutrition. To begin with, let us learn about the requirement of nutrition in plants. The process by which green plants can make their own food, glucose, from simple substances like carbon dioxide, water from the soil, sunlight and minerals which are present in the surroundings is called autotrophic mode of nutrition. Organisms using this mode of nutrition are called autotrophs. Autotrophs produce large compounds like carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, etc. These carbohydrates produced by plants are used for providing energy in most of the living organisms, including all animals and human beings. Everything we eat comes from the plants either directly or indirectly. After many centuries of research, scientists have discovered that the process of photosynthesis makes plants the universal food provider for all living organisms. Van Helmont and other scientists have concluded that plants not only get food materials from the soil, but also from other factors during photosynthesis. Let us learn about this process further. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants prepare their own food. It occurs in the leaves of a plant. Every green plant contains a green pigment called chlorophyll, which develops complex organic molecules from simple compound in the presence of sunlight. C.B. Van Niel formulated a simple equation on photosynthesis in the year 1931. His idea was for each molecule of carbohydrate formed, one molecule of water and one molecule of oxygen is also produced. This is a very simplified equation and does not reflect the complexity of the process of photosynthesis. Yet, we shall use it for now. Plants are capable of synthesizing carbohydrates and all other compounds like proteins, fats, etc. Animals depend on plants for food such as carbohydrates because they are not capable of synthesizing carbohydrates on their own. Now, let us do an activity to verify the production of carbohydrates by plants during the process of photosynthesis. Here, let us perform an activity to check the presence of starch in leaves. Click each tab to know more. Let us take a soft thin leaf from a potted plant. Boil the leaf in water for 5 minutes to soften it. Place the leaf in a test tube containing alcohol. Take a test tube with methylated spirit and place the leaf in it. Now, place the test tube in a beaker containing water. Gently heat the test tube in a beaker containing water until the leaf becomes pale white. Note, this happens because the chlorophyll gets removed from the leaf. Now, observe the leaf and wash it with water. Next, place the leaf on a petri dish. Add few drops of iodine solution to it and observe the changes in the leaf. It is observed that the parts of the leaf turns into blue-black color, indicating the presence of starch. From this activity, we learn that starch is present in the leaves even in the absence of chlorophyll. What are the materials that you think are necessary for the synthesis of carbohydrates in the process of photosynthesis? Do you think that the equation of photosynthesis tells about all the materials involved? After doing research for over 300 years, scientists have discovered that several other materials are involved in the process of photosynthesis apart from water, air, sunlight, carbon dioxide and minerals. Let us learn about the role of these materials in the process of photosynthesis. Von Helmont found that water was necessary for the growth of any plant. In class 7, we have already studied this fact by conducting the experiments. Once again, read the chapter on nutrition in plants in class 7 and understand how he concluded that water was necessary for the growth in the body mass of any plant. Now, let us learn about the role of air in the process of photosynthesis. Joseph Priestley, who discovered oxygen in 1774, performed a series of experiments to reveal the essential role of air in the growth of green plants. He observed that when a burning candle is enclosed in a bell jar, the flame of the candle is gradually put off. In the same way, a mouse also suffocates in a closed space, such as in an enclosed bell jar, and dies. From these observations, Priestley concluded that a burning candle and an animal change the composition of the air. He reasoned that something was necessary in the air to keep the flame burning and to make the mouse stay alive. Priestley then placed a mint plant inside the same bell jars, and he found that the mouse stayed alive and the candle, when lighted from outside, continued burning in the presence of the mint plant. Priestley hypothesized that the plants produced a gas, oxygen, that supported the burning of the candle and also allowed the mouse to survive respiration. The production of the gas takes place due to a massive exchange of gases occurring through a particular section of the leaves called stomata, and also through loose tissues on stems, roots, etc. Let us discuss in brief about how carbon dioxide is useful for photosynthesis. Here, let us perform an activity to learn about the necessity of carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Click each tab to know more. In order to start the experiment, we need a destarched plant. For this reason, place a plant in the dark for 3 days in order to free the leaves from the starch. Remember the process of destarching the leaves as performed in activity 1. Presence of starch in leaves. Insert a splitted cork in the mouth of the bottle. Place half of the leaf of destarched plant into the bottle having potassium hydroxide pellets or potassium hydroxide solution. Leave the plant under sunlight for few hours. After this, test the part of the leaf inside the bottle with the part of the leaf exposed to sunlight by pouring iodine solution on it. Observe the changes in the leaf. It was observed that half of the leaf was exposed to the sunlight. Atmospheric air becomes bluish black, and the leaf which was present inside the bottle containing potassium hydroxide does not become bluish black because potassium hydroxide absorbs the carbon dioxide present in the bottle. This indicates that carbon dioxide is necessary for the process of photosynthesis. From this experiment, it is clear that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. During Priestley's time, scientists did not understand about energy, but in the following years, our understanding on energy increased. It was learnt that by combining oxygen with carbon and hydrogen atoms, carbon dioxide and water are produced. Scientists then tried to understand the role of oxygen in photosynthesis by learning about the process of its formation and replenishment in air. Initially, they learned that energy situation can also reverse. Later, a Dutch scientist, Jan Ingenhousz, studied the way in which plants formed oxygen. In 1779, he observed that the formation of oxygen occurs only in the presence of light. In an experiment with the aquatic plant hydrilla, he noticed that in bright sunlight, small bubbles are formed around the green parts, while no bubbles were formed in the dark. He also discovered that the gas present inside the bubbles was oxygen. In the early 20th century, Engelmann inventively identified the point of maximum photosynthesis by exposing a strand of algae to different colors of light, the colors that are present in a rainbow. He used oxygen-sensitive bacteria and discovered certain crowded areas which illuminated under red and blue lights. This directs to study more on light and photosynthesis and the role of different colored compounds called plant pigments and the use of light. Now, let us do an activity to learn about the production of oxygen during photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. Here, let us perform an activity to understand how oxygen is produced during photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. Click each tab to know more. Consider the apparatus shown in the image. Take a beaker and fill it with pond water. Place water plant like hydrilla or elodie inside the beaker and cover it by a short-stemmed funnel. Take a test tube and invert it over the stem of the funnel. Ensure that the level of water in the beaker must be above the level of the end of inverted funnel. Place the entire assembly of apparatus in the sunlight for at least 3 days. It is observed that in place of water, air is filled in it. This air is actually a gas and is collected in the test tube. Test the gas collected in the test tube by inserting a glowing incense stick, which would burst into flames. This indicates the presence of oxygen. The air bubbles formed in the test tube is of oxygen gas. Thus, it is clear from this activity that oxygen is produced during the process of photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight. Here, let us perform an activity to learn about the need of sunlight in the formation of starch. Click each tab to know more. Take a plant having destarched leaves, that is, a plant which is placed in the dark for 3 days. Remember the process of destarching the leaves as performed in Activity 1, presence of starch in leaves. Wrap one of its leaves with black paper on which a design is cut. Fix the black paper on the leaf with the help of clips such that light should not enter the dark part. Now, place this plant in the sunlight for few hours. Later, test the leaf that is covered by black paper for the presence of starch by pouring iodine solution on the leaf. Observe the changes in the leaf. It is observed that only the parts of the leaf which are exposed to the light through cut-out design turn to blue-black, indicating the presence of starch. From the experiment, we learned that starch is formed only at the parts where sunlight falls. In this way, it is clear that sunlight is compulsory for the formation of starch. Knowledge check. Ingenhousz researched more about photosynthesis. He proposed that only the green-colored parts of the plant could carry the process of photosynthesis.